Okay, we ready?
Are we ready to go? Let me start the clock.
Oh, what's the new thing called?
What new thing?
Are we getting this?
I was going to do that part, but you
fucking love
can.
you, Gilbert. I fucking love you.
It's called Inside Jokes.
Have you met Neil?
I'm Neil Berkeley.
Neil made our documentary, Gilbert.
Yeah. Yeah.
His producer,
met.
Maggie, is staying with us.
Here we go, Frank.
We've traveled
Oh, you
together.
got some of that.
Traveled together.
you
That
go.
would be great.
Off you go, Gilly.
Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and I'm here with my co-host Frank Santopadre, and this is another episode of Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions. Now, the guest I think I know.
One of them.
He actually he directed and filmed my documentary called Gilbert.
Colossal Obsessions.
Which got
Poor bastard.
Yes, got great reviews. I just want to bother you with tiny portions.
Go ahead.
A tenderly observed, remarkably insightful keeper. You may or may not walk away from Gilbert a Gilbert Gottfried fan, but either way, the movie makes you glad he exists.
Who said this?
Not no one you'd wanna quote.
Are these critics?
Yeah.
Ah.
And he's a comedian, a genuine, self-effacing man without a blah, 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 blah.
That's
and,
important.
Way to sell it,
yeah.
Gilbert.
Well, whatever it is. Anyway, he made the
Those
film,
are raves.
He made the film Gilbert.
That's true.
Hi, Neil.
Hi. Good to see
Welcome
you
back.
again. Thank you very much.
And who did you bring with us this week, pray tell?
I brought subject of my latest work, Rosebud Baker.
Hello, Rosebud.
I know all about it.
What's it about?
What's
Gilbert,
the name?
Tell
I
us about
watched
inside
every
jokes.
episode, and so I happen to know it's called Inside Jokes.
And which channel is it on without looking?
Well, I'd want to give you a chance
Sure,
to
of
talk.
course. I'll give you a hint. It's a streaming service.
Oh,
Starts with an A.
an A.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Hey!
Hey! Not that I didn't know.
What a seasoned pro.
Yes.
Well, Neil is here to talk about his brand new, as Gilbert pointed out, 6-episode. Do I have that right?
6 episodes on
Docu-series?
Amazon.
We calling it a docu-series?
Amazon Prime. It's a docu-series. Yes, it follows 7 comedians as they audition and prepare and go to Just for Laughs in Montreal, the comedy festival, to perform in the New Faces Showcase, which is a very important thing in comedy that not many people know about. No one knows about it, but it's a very, very big deal.
Yeah.
And
Nobody but comedians.
Comedy
really.
insiders know about it,
in
but
comedy,
it's not known.
Yeah, the
to.
thing I tell people is like, it used to be you go on Carson, you go to the couch, and you get to be famous after
Mm-hmm.
this. And nowadays, being on Tonight Show is not, a lot of people have Tonight Show sets or late show sets, but only 20 people a year get to go to New Faces. So Kevin Hart did it, Amy Schumer did it, Pete Davidson,
Colin Jost.
Colin
lots
Jost.
of people. Yeah. Michelle Wolf.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kumail. Yeah.
Mel Nanjiani.
Yeah.
Do you know that I'm obviously Rosebud, everybody knows from Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
But do you know where?
Oh, God.
What the...
Oh, God.
I know.
go.
She
Yeah, I
knows.
know where he's
You
going with
know.
that.
She knows.
You know.
Yep, it's a genre.
Yes, this is a famous legend.
Uh-huh.
That
Why don't you tell us about it?
because Citizen Kane
Do you know what
was
he's talking about?
based
She knows.
on William Randolph Hearst.
Right.
And William Randolph Hearst was going out with what the fuck was
Marion Davies.
Marion Davies. And
She was a starlet. He was trying to make her into a star. She had limited talent.
Yeah, although they say the difference was that Marion Davies actually did have talent, whereas the one in the movie,
Dorothy
is shown-
Commingore.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, go ahead.
According to legend,
I watch you dig the hole.
William Randolph Hearst called Marion Davies, let's see, her cunt, Rosebud. That
Is
was
that
his
true?
pet name.
Her,
Yeah, that's
he
what I've
called
heard.
her
Is this which? Well, it's close, Gilbert.
C-U-N-T Rosebud?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, what's close?
Yes.
Well, he's going to make me say this. It was actually her clitoris.
A clitoris
Yes.
was Rosebud?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to get too clinical.
I thought
Yeah.
it was her
It's
entire
also a
Sorry.
genre of porn that involves a prolapsed anus, which is also a nice,
yeah.
a nice namesake for myself as well
Wow.
as a comedian.
Now,
So,
now,
This show is educational.
That's
I
what
say
I
it every
was-
week.
yeah.
wait,
Said-
there's a type of porn that just has to do with the clitoris?
No,
Never mind,
just even
More specific.
yeah,
Never
more
mind.
specific.
That more.
A pro something anus.
No, don't go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just led to a lot of troublesome Google searches for
You
people.
know too
I
much
think.
about the origin of your own name.
I do.
Is the problem.
I do. I
Yeah.
should
Yes.
change it.
Yes, Rosebud was the sled in Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, the alleged reasons that Hearst was so upset
Yes.
with Orson Welles and the movie, among other reasons.
He said, that's not Marion's cunt. That's a
was
sled.
the name Rosebud for the sled was allegedly taken from his his private life
Yeah.
and was off limits information.
And like newspapers.
Are you regretting this yet? You're getting any
No,
of
not this is
Newspapers
This doesn't
were
even touch the surface of what I've talked about on podcasts.
Newspapers back then were scared to run ads for
Correct.
Citizen Kane.
Correct.
Because William Randolph Hearst owned everything.
And threatened
He was powerful.
retribution against
Yeah.
the papers that would advertise the movie.
Yeah.
Yes. Good stuff.
Yeah.
But
so
let's get back
It's historic.
to inside jokes. Because we digress. How did this happen, Neil? How did it come about? I mean,
I'm a big fan of Inside Jokes. It's currently on Amazon.
we're going to attempt an interview. Our pal Howie Mandel. How was Howie involved?
It happened because after I finished the movie about Gilbert,
Yes.
one of my ideas was to follow one of my things was I would love to follow a comedian around for a while they write jokes. But I was with Gilbert for 6 months, and your material is
Yes.
Yeah, was not written in this era.
And I pitched this idea to a producer, and he went and he called me one day and he said, "Hey, I just talked to Amazon. I think I sold that idea about following comedians around as they get their material together." And I told him, "You're going to direct it." So it all happened very fast. I mean, that was in December, and then in January we were shooting the auditions. It was all very, very quick.
Here it is.
Yeah.
So the Gilbert doc was obviously instrumental in.
Oh yeah,
in
for
them-
sure. No, that movie's opened up a ton of doors for me. I mean,
Didn't do shit for me. But
no, that movie's been very, very good for
fucking
me.
waste of time.
Gilbert, many more people know about your obsessions.
Yes.
And you're collecting shampoo bottles and you're washing your socks in the
I
sink.
don't know how many tweets I've gotten. Like more and more hotels are doing this thing where the shampoo and lotion are nailed to the wall, and you pump it out.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and I get all these tweets saying, "We're really sorry, Gilbert."
You've played a role in it. And so, Rosebud, how did you get involved? How did
I met Neil at the auditions for JFL. It was my first time
just for
auditioning.
laughs for our listeners who
Just
don't
for
know
laughs.
are familiar?
And I was auditioning for the first time, and then I remember when I got off stage, there was a camera there, and we walked up to the camera, and they asked us, like, I don't know, I think they asked me, like, who am I competing against or something. I forget what it was, but I just sort of blabbermouthed into the camera, walked away, and then I got a call, basically like, can we follow you around for a little while? Then they went back to LA, pitched it to Amazon, I guess, and then they came back, and we were gearing up for callbacks, and they were basically in my house every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I saw you in episode 2 last night while walking your dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bama?
Bama.
How's Bama?
Oh boy.
Bama's dead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bring it up.
Okay,
Wait,
well,
so we shot this a while ago, huh?
Our dog's dead too.
I said,
well,
she's
okay, so we're off to
dead
a
as a
good
doornail.
start.
wow.
Her dog's dead, and I don't know what your fucking show's called. But other than that, we're off to the races.
So Neil, the pitch here was that it's just people who could be in any walk of life. They just happen to be comics.
Yeah, that was my pitch. I think they thought it would be more like competitive, more comedians going after each other and all this, but that was, boring to me too. I always say it's a show about people that happen to be stand-ups.
Right.
Like, the Gilbert movie does have stand-up, but it's mostly about Gilbert and the kids and Dara. To me, the personal stories are far more interesting. So it does get into their personal lives and who they are and where the jokes come from.
And how were these 7 hopefuls decided upon?
A combination of, it was a couple things. Like
they have to audition to be in a series about auditioning?
No. So they auditioned for Just for Laughs, and after the show, we would talk to the judges, and I would say who was funny, and they would tell us who was funny and why. But that interview that she's talking about that she walked up to was really how we found out the personal stuff. Like, it was 5 questions. Where are you from? How'd you get into comedy? Tell us about your backstory. It was a combination of them being interesting as people and funny as comedians. So it wasn't just about stand-up. It wasn't just because they were funny.
Right. Which leads us to the question, Rosebud. How did you get into comedy and why?
Oh,
Because
God.
Gilbert has talked about many, many times on this show how he got into it at the age of 15. When, as you like to say, what? You were too dumb to know better?
Yeah, too stupid to know any better.
Yeah.
And it's now when people tell me they're an aspiring comic, I think, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, you could fill out a form at McDonald's and it makes sense. You'll have like a job there. You press the button that says Big Mac and fries and Coke. And it's like so I wasn't thinking, now I think in terms of like the competition and the rejection and all that.
Yeah.
Back then, it was like I was just too stupid to think about it.
Well, you don't have comedians in the family. This is you're an outlier.
Yeah, I'm an outlier.
Okay.
I would be the first. I think I just had like the worst year of my life, and I just had no pride left. So I was like too sad to know any better, I think. And I went and did an open mic, and I just decided, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing this, and then it kind of snowballed. Like, it just became a compulsion.
Did you see it as therapeutic? Is that why you went up the first time? Because
I don't know what I saw
you were
it
sort of
as.
at a low point, and
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was just the first time I'd felt excitement in a while. Honestly, it was like I felt a pulse again.
you wanted the stimulation of it.
Yeah.
But you talked about,
Interesting.
Gilbert, you talked about when you first started, you had an addiction to it. You've talked about that you were just like, you had to do it every night.
Yeah, when I first started it, it was like there could be a war going on outside with, rifles and hand grenades. And I would I'd walk to the club and it didn't matter what was happening. I had to get on stage.
Yeah.
Compulsion.
Now I feel like, they offer to pay me and everything, and they'll pay me and fly me out, and I go, I don't want to go on.
So you've done a 180.
Yeah,
you went from the compulsiveness, the compulsion to having to do it, to now you can't be bothered.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's like, well, I'll go. It's gotten when I'm on stage, it's fine. It's like, it's kind of, I compare it to standing by the water in a pool or the ocean, and you're dipping your toe in and it's freezing cold, and you go, I don't want to go in there. That's horrible. And then when I'm in there, it's fine.
One time, me and Gilbert were in Minnesota, and he was doing 2 shows, the 7 o'clock and the 9 o'clock, whatever, and they come in between shows, and they give him the envelope with the check, and he goes, oh, do I have to do the second show?
They prepaid him for the second show. Yeah. All these years, you never pulled the fire alarm, Gilbert, or just held a lighter up to the sprinkler system. Because I know that's your secret desire. You also said when Howie was here that it's something very interesting that I never heard you say, that you would have been at home just going from club to club, spending the entire day and night on stage.
Back then, if you said, we'll just put you on, just come over, we'll put you on, I would have stayed up till 4 o'clock we were already staying up till 4 o'clock. I would have stayed up till 10 o'clock in the morning, just doing it one right after the other if they arranged it that way.
You relate to that, Rose?
Yeah, I remember I stood out in the freezing cold. I had no idea how unhappy I should have been. And it was probably when they had that polar vortex, I think it was 2013, and it was negative 14 degrees, and I was standing outside of the Village Lantern barking for people to come in so that I could do 5 minutes. And I did one show after another, just doing that to get stage time.
Right, because people that aren't in comedy and that don't live in this world know that it's not just the onstage struggle.
Right,
it's the dealing with the
offstage,
the barking and the bringer shows.
Yeah,
and all the various bullshit.
And that's what the show is about. These are people. I always say
you have a show.
Yes, it's called
tell us the
Jokes.
title because Gilbert won't.
Inside Jokes on Amazon Prime. It's on the internet or your phone.
Amazon streaming.
And your name again.
Neil Berkeley.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you might like my early work.
But what were you saying before?
I mean, it is about that. There's some episodes that don't have a lot of stand-up because it is about that struggle. Imagine you saw a show about Kevin Hart before he filled arenas. Like right before that happened. This is where these people are. They're still. Just
right before I fill an arena. Just 2 days before I fill an arena.
Or this is the moment where they're still like trying to make ends meet and just trying to find stage. There's so many times where we shot them doing stand-up for free or having to buy a beer to get 5 minutes.
Seeing some of those
on stage.
venues. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in comedy clubs, not as a performer, but I've seen some.
I remember one time after I'd been doing comedy for a while at all those clubs, and they paid $0. And I went somebody wanted me to meet them at some bar. And I was sitting at the bar, and the bartender comes over to me and says, oh, you want anything? I said, no, I'm meeting someone here. And they brought me a Coke. And I said, I didn't order this. And he said, no, well, you're sitting there. And I thought, oh, Christ, someone actually brought me a free Coke? Because you couldn't get a free soda at these fucking clubs.
Have things improved any? Rose?
Not really. not at all. There's one club where it says on the wall where I perform, it says, you can't have bottles of water anymore. It just says that on the wall. Comedians, you can't have bottles of water anymore. If you want water, get a cup in the back and fill it from the sink or whatever. It's just like, okay.
It's humbling. What was that patio space that they were performing in? It was an outdoor space.
Oh yeah, well that's in LA. Well, LA.
What the hell was that?
I mean, LA is different. In New York, you can come out and you can get stage time pretty much every night, right? I mean, in LA, you kind of have to create your own shows. So one of the comics in the show creates a show in a parking lot of a coffee shop. He builds his own little stage out of a wooden flat just to get his own stage time.
In another scene, there wasn't even a stage. There was a guy standing at a mic next to a pool table. In a bar, getting people, hoping people would stop shooting pool.
In a sports club in San Clemente, with people that didn't go there to watch comedy. That's another thing is there's a lot of times people are going to do comedy and everyone that went there that night
nobody asked for it.
Comedy breaks out from nowhere.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this, the worst venue without naming names.
God, I have to think about that. I honestly do because there's so many. I did a laundromat once.
A laundromat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a laundromat.
Gilbert would have loved that.
Gilbert would have enjoyed
it. Yes. That would have been...
Good point, Darren.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with doing my laundry.
Did you see the Gilbert movie?
Yeah.
Yes, I saw it.
Well, there you go. You saw him washing socks in a hotel.
Yeah, I wash my socks and underwear every night.
But you don't need a laundromat for that.
It's too much info.
Yeah, but in a laundromat, it still comes out cleaner.
You should call Jeff and see if you could get a gig in a laundromat.
Yes. That would be ideal.
The show's also about the sacrifices that you all make, like Kellen's family, which was sort of sad.
Yeah.
He says at one point, I realize that the better I become as a comic, the worse I will be as a father. As a father,
yeah. When he said that was a heartbreaking thing for him to say and admit out loud. You go to this guy's house and you're like, hey, I'm going to make this show about him, and you see that he has 3 kids. And in my head, I'm going, geez, I hope this guy is funny. Like, I don't even know him very well. It was
would hope
really
so.
hard. I mean, it's like, man, he has to feed all these mouths on comedy. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is the real story about people that are trying to make it by making people laugh, which on its own is a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
To stand up.
I felt like I was going through that while we were shooting it. I was kind of making that realization because, especially, I hate saying this, but like as a woman in comedy, you go, oh, I can't have a family and I can't be like a good mom and a comic and work. You know what I mean? Like I can be a shitty mom or a good comic, or I can be a shitty comic and a good mom. Like it's like one or the other. You just have to choose. And I was like thinking that while we were shooting it because I wanted to get married and all this stuff. And since the doc has come out, I'm just like, kind of got rid of my relationship and I'm just kind of on my own and I'm just doing it. And it feels like kind of relieved of the responsibility.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Do you think, and I'll ask this of you, Gilbert, too, do you think, see if I can phrase this question correctly, is there something slightly off about a person who wants to do this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who wants
more than a few things.
And I don't even
slightly
mean the
off.
success. I don't even mean necessarily chasing the money or the trappings, but somebody from a psychological standpoint who wants to get up in a room full of strangers and make and entertain them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You've come to grips with this.
It's craziness. Well, I what always fascinates me is that schizophrenia of part of you is going, I'm so great. I'm going to make my living going up and millions of people around the world will pay money to see me and applaud me. And the other part of you that's going, oh, please love me. I just need some love. Just love me right now.
Yeah, I think Rosebud among all the comics to me reminded me of Gilbert. One, material-wise. Your material is it goes there.
It's edgy.
It's edgy,
Smart.
yeah. But also there's this attitude of your early days, they said you would put you up and laughs weren't, this is a weird to say about a comic, but laughs weren't the point of the night. Like you just wanted to do your thing and have fun. There were a lot of nights where Rosebud, it looked like you were just gonna do your set. If they liked it, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine. Like you were gonna do your thing.
Yeah.
And that reminded me a lot of things that other comics said, like David Tell and Jeff Ross talked about Gilbert being that way. So of all of them, like you reminded me the most of Gilbert. It was familiar.
I think he means that as a compliment.
Yeah.
There's a compliment in there somewhere.
And Gilbert is what William Randolph Hearst called Marion Davis's cunt. He used to call it Gilbert.
Tell us about the other comics. Tell us if there's what's his name? Alzo Slade.
Alzo Slade, a New York comedian, very funny guy.
Yeah.
He's Alzo's this guy. Everyone that ever met Alzo wanted Alzo to think they were cool.
Yeah.
Like Alzo, he's got this like whole persona.
He's got
about
like
him.
a degree in philosophy or something.
Degree in
He's a very
philosophy,
bright guy.
very well-educated guy. He has a degree in philosophy. He teaches philosophy.
And Kellen is the guy that has the two kids waiting at home.
Three kids and a wife.
I only counted two.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Simon is the guy working out of the food truck.
Simon Gibson works in a coffee trailer.
Okay,
it's a trailer that's been converted into a coffee shop.
That means it went downhill because when I was living in LA, he was in a shop and now he's in a trailer. So his side gig went downhill.
And his roommates M.K. Paulson and Daphne Springs is on the show.
Daphne, right?
Yeah, and Robert Dean, another New York comedian who Rosebud performs with a lot.
Right.
And that here, like hearing about that guy who works in a food truck, it's like in my mind now. See, back then it was like, it didn't matter. There was I didn't think in terms of competition or rejection, anything. And now I think, he's got a perfectly good job in a food truck. Someone orders a coffee, they give him $1, and they made $1 then.
Gilbert secretly longs to quit his career and become a barrister. A barista. Not a barrister.
But I wanted Dare to be here because I had a very, before I came here, I had a very Gilbert moment on the way here. I went to a restaurant to meet Gilbert that might be 100 yards Yeah, stone's throw from his apartment.
You can see it from my window.
On our corner.
I haven't been cursed out by Gilbert in a long time.
So what happened? Because I wasn't with him.
He called me.
Okay.
And I said, where are you? And he goes, I'm in the restaurant. And I said, I'm in the restaurant. And he said, no, you're not. I'm in the restaurant. And I said, no, you're not. I'm here. Go outside. And then he said, fuck you. You go outside. So I go outside. I said, where are you? And he starts cursing me out saying, where are you? F you. Where are you?
Yeah.
Go F yourself. Why aren't you here? And he had gone 2 blocks south.
How did you go,
It was,
Gilbert?
yeah, I went to some other restaurant. Now, this restaurant that you went to, I've been there I've been in that area for like 20 years. And I've been there like
We just ate there last week.
times. Yeah, we've eaten there hundreds of times, and I didn't know the name of it, and I went to the wrong restaurant.
So I hear him go, where are you? And I said, Restivo's. And he goes, I'm in Restivo's. And then I hear him the phone goes, and he goes, is this Restivo's? And the guy goes, no. And he goes, I'm not in the right place.
That's him.
This is what happens when I'm not there.
People who watch the documentary will go. I'm sure a lot of people think, oh, a lot of this was made up for. Gilbert can't be that fucking stupid.
What was the best part of making the doc, Neil, if you could boil it down to
This
one
one
thing?
or Gilbert?
The Gilbert doc, and then I'll ask you about this one. I know part of it was discovering Arlene.
Arlene, yeah. Well, that was day one. That was the very first day of shooting. Is I met Arlene, and that was the cool thing. Is I got to introduce all these things. I get to introduce the world to these people that you would not have known, or you might not have known otherwise. Like no one, like Arlene has 4 books published over the last 30 years, and I got to be the person that made this movie that said, "Here she is." Take a look at this work.
Gratifying.
I'm very, very proud of that.
And what was funny about that is I still, during the entire making of the movie, I hated
me. You hated
Bill,
me.
every second of it. But when I saw Arlene was getting some attention, I thought, oh, okay, this is a good thing.
That made it worthwhile. Yeah.
Yeah. How selfless of you, Gilbert. I said, how selfless of you.
Yes. Yeah.
To let it be about somebody else.
Yes.
I think that was the only reason that you wanted to keep doing it, really, or is because you thought it would, be good for Arlene.
It wasn't because of the director.
And Neil made sure that you ate.
Yes.
He took care of you on the road.
Bless your heart, Neil.
Which I was very grateful
for. You did the Lord's work.
Yeah. But this one, no, it does feel good to let the world know that there's these people, and I think you see a comedy after things start to happen, So to introduce the world to people that are still trying to make things happen,
It's funny the perspective, because Colin Jost is in the first episode, and he's talking about how, and you look at him now, obviously, but he's talking about how he performed a stand-up set for 3 people. Yeah. One of them was his agent. Yeah. One of them was his ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend, yeah, and she felt like she won. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, that's been very satisfying, and I think that's what people are responding to. So.
Was it a big production? I know you said...
Huge. It was massive. Yeah. Well, we shot 7 people to New York, L.A. We shot for a week in Montreal. At one point, there were 70 people on the crew.
Wow.
We went to all their hometowns. We went to Maine.
Speaking different languages, I heard.
So, yeah. Most of the crew was speaking very... only French. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a huge production at one point.
Was Howie involved in any capacity other than the fact that he's just taken over the Just for Laughs festival?
No, yeah, he was a big part of the show getting sold, actually. The fact that he came on
Howie Mandel.
gave it credit to Howie Mandel. Yeah. But when I was there, I called him and said, "Hey, would you mind talking to one of our comics?" And he said, "Whatever you need." And Rosebud actually has a scene in the 5th episode with Howie.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm so ashamed that I know he doesn't like to shake hands.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
That's an understatement.
So what I did was I said goodbye to him by doing prayer hands, like a namaste, and I'm so ashamed of it. It just it's so embarrassing. And then he hugged me because I think he felt bad for me. It was like I went, "Well, nice to meet you," with the prayers, and then he reached in for a hug, and I was like, he hates this. And so
everyone points out that hug, that you got a hug.
Yeah.
People always like, "Oh, wait, she get a hug?"
I remember I was in Chicago, and I was doing like a radio thing for some club I was doing, and they said, Howie Mandel's across the street. He's doing press, and he was doing press because the book about him being a germaphobe was coming out. And I went to meet him in the lobby, totally forgetting the fact that I was coming down with something. And I sat down with Howie, and I immediately start going, and he like throws both his hands and his scarf. He wrapped his mouth closed, and he goes, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Were you also like taking the chips, Gilbert? Weren't you taking like the chips and dipping them and re-dipping them? And
I was eating with him, and it was like a Mexican place, so it had the chips in a basket. And I was eating them, and he's looking at me, and I said, "Oh, do you want some?" And he goes, "No, I'm not going near those chips." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You've been taking chips out, biting them, and then putting them back in the basket."
So when did the show start airing, Rose? And what kind of feedback have you got? The show is called Inside Jokes.
I just realized that being with Gilbert trained me for this, because it was the megabus. It wasn't like I was with Gilbert. It wasn't like I was with a rich, like...
You weren't flying first class.
No. It was very much
traveling with Mariah Carey.
Taking the megabus to Baltimore.
Yeah. What's the response been to friends and family?
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I'm obsessed, so I'm like checking the Amazon reviews constantly. And I saw
great reviews, by the way.
Yeah, but it's always the assholes that come first. You know what I mean? The ones that don't have anything else going on. So then they put in their 2 cents. They're always the first ones to pipe up. And then I saw that, and I went on Instagram, and I just launched into these people about how they're awful people, that we should all burn their houses down. And anyway, so a bunch of people from my Instagram went over and started like reviewing the show really well, and it's kind of like snowballed, which is great, because I was like, I'm going to start a campaign to get these people kicked off Amazon. Too. I have one girl was like, I've reported every single person. And there's only like 9 bad reviews, and then the rest it's like 113, whatever.
The bad reviews, though, you remember.
Oh my God.
That's like when
those
Dara
are the ones that I'm obsessed with.
Gilbert, you know about social media. You've had social media.
I bet it's been nothing but good for me, the internet.
You're like him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
If we get 700 reviews on iTunes for this podcast, Dara will find the
one.
Yeah.
She'll find the one negative one.
About that one.
Yeah.
Instead of the great ones.
I actually called a reporter once that gave you a bad review.
That's love, Gilbert.
I called him.
That's
I was
love.
like, how dare you talk about my husband this way?
I looked up one guy on there who gave it a 1 and a bad review, but he had also reviewed straws. Like he gave some straws a bad review. So this is just a bored person with nothing
Drinking
to do.
straws?
Yeah, drinking straws. Yeah,
they're overrated.
1 star.
Because with Gilbert, the documentary Gilbert, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like 99 rave reviews.
There was one.
As it should.
There was only one. There was only one.
And
the guy was in Seattle.
Yeah.
I'm like obsessed about it. I'm like, just one.
Yeah.
I'm like, fucked up or 100%.
I read a good review in Decider of this show. See, they said CNN's history of comedy works on a cerebral level, but this show works on an emotional level. Did you read that?
Yeah.
That was flattering.
It was a very good... Yeah.
I didn't
That
read
was
it.
exciting.
Listen, I even went to one of the tapings of Neil's show.
Oh, you were there at
was that?
Rosebud's. You were at Rosebud's
I know.
taping, yeah.
It was amazing. I was there. I had the best time.
Did you know
Which
that?
taping?
Your callback.
Yeah.
Oh, you were at my
I was
callback?
there. Yeah, I was there.
Wow.
I was there. I loved it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I did think, I was like, we could turn up the laughs a little bit on the callback scene. That was my only, I was like, I
loved
remember
it.
doing better than that. But maybe I didn't, and maybe I was just amped up.
It was great.
Yeah.
So,
thanks.
Neil, now streaming on Amazon Prime.
Yes, Gilbert.
All 6. Gilbert's not talking because he's looking up the show on his phone because he can't wait to watch it. Right, Gil?
He's watching it again as we speak.
Also, by the way, the scene where Simon, where he's communicating with friends back home, and they say, "Oh, you're doing wonderfully in L.A.," and he says, "I didn't have the heart to tell them I just went on food stamps."
Yeah.
That tells you a lot about the life of a struggling.
Yes. Simon also
stand-up.
kicks off one episode doing stand-up for one person.
Yeah. That is my favorite scene, is when it all of a sudden he goes, I'm going to talk over here. I'm going to look over here so that I'm not just looking at you, and then it pans out and it's one person in the audience. I was dying.
Yeah.
Did you ever perform for one person, Gilbert?
Yeah. That's
not your wedding night.
Yeah, that's recently.
Yes. And what's where can people see you, Rose?
You can just my website, rosebudbaker.com, or on Instagram at rosebudbaker. All my show dates and stuff like that.
And you're playing clubs in and around.
In and around. I'll be at
city.
Sketchfest in January in San Fran.
She's very funny, folks. She's very funny, very edgy.
Thank you.
I told you my wife laughed out loud. I won't give the joke away, but
that's great.
You have to see. You'll have to watch the show. And it's any other plugs, Neil?
No, that's it. Just watch this. Yeah.
Shall we plug Gilbert again?
Yeah. Or
See,
go to iTunes.
The what?
Go to iTunes and watch Gilbert.
iTunes, yeah.
Over and over again, please.
Or Hulu, right?
Yeah.
Or Hulu. Yeah, go to Hulu, yeah.
iTunes or Hulu, see Gilbert. And then
by the
also
great Neil
see this
Berkeley.
documentary that has to do with William Randolph Hearst's girlfriend's cunt.
Such an unwieldy title.
Thank you for letting me do this. Thanks,
Of course,
thanks for having me on
bud. I
again.
love
You could have
seeing you.
come up with something a little catchier. That's easier to remember.
Say goodnight, Gilbert.
Good night, Gilbert.
Okay. This has been Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Podcast with Neil Berkeley and Rosebud Baker, which I had to look down. Okay.
Good luck. The show is great. Good luck with everything. Rosebud, come back and do this show.
Thank you.
Under different circumstances when you're famous.
You have to do it when you're 95.
Yeah.
And have 3 days to live.